Welcome to the Athena Wellness Podcast, the show that invites you to take a seat around the community fire and listen to stories that inspire. I'm your host, Kathy Robinson, author, coach, and founder of Athena Wellness, a company that's dedicated to supporting you on your journey to live more wholeheartedly. Today's episode is brought to you by the Athena Wellness Academy, your resource for wholehearted living. The Academy's featured offering is an online course called From Type A to Type B, How to Mindfully Descend the Corporate Ladder and Invite What's Next. This course is perfect for you if you're contemplating or navigating a professional transition, and it's available as a self-study or with a small cohort of students facilitated by me, Kathy Robinson. To learn more, I invite you to go to athenawellnessacademy.teachable.com or click on the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining me. Today's episode is an amazing story of reinvention. It's about how your fondest childhood memories of favorite relatives and activities can continue to support and inspire you throughout your life. It's about how following a stable career path can leave you feeling lifeless. And it's about reconnecting with childhood joy as a way to reinvention. I'm joined today by Judith Keys, the founder of My Food in France. Judith shares her story of growing up in the UK, working for a large law firm in Scotland while working a cupcake side hustle, and then moving to France when she married, had a family, and started a virtual assistant business. While on maternity leave after having her second child, her passion for food reemerged, and Judith decided to create My Food in France. Its mission is to create love and connectedness through food. I love that. We have a beautiful heart-level conversation, and here's what we cover. How her passion for food started in childhood, what it was like to have a corporate career and a food-based side hustle, what the catalyst was to leave corporate for a new life in France, and what her life is like today as an entrepreneur. Judith can be found on LinkedIn and Instagram, and I'll include her link tree in the show notes so you can explore her membership. And now on to the show. I hope you enjoy this sweet, touching conversation. All right. Judith, welcome to the Athena Wellness Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for having me.
So please share a bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name is Judith Keys, and I am originally from Belfast in Northern Ireland. And I now live in Provence in the south of France with my husband and 2 children. And I run My Food in France Limited.
That sounds so wonderful. I live in Provence. So what brought you to where you are and the work that you do today?
I mean, that is a big question because there have been a lot of changes along the way, but I think my love of food has always been there since I was a little girl. There are pictures, slides of me, if anybody can remember slides.
I remember slides.
You remember slides? There are slides of me as a little girl making mud pies in the back garden. So it's always been something that I have loved, cooking and food and ingredients. And yeah, I've finally been able to create a business around that, and I feel really grateful for that now, Kathy. After years of doing different things and dabbling here and there with food and how I could use it to make a living, and I'm finally doing that now. So yeah, it's great.
It's so timely. I just wrote a blog post that will go live shortly about using play to create the next phase of life. And my point was, sometimes we get coached to include more play. And when you're a stressed professional, we're going to get into your backstory. When you were a stressed professional, having somebody tell you, you really need to add more play into your life, with having a husband and 2 kids and a career, it's like, it just adds stress.
Yeah.
But there's something about how you played when you were a kid and the things that still feed you as an adult. So in your case, I love this thread of imaginary mud pies. And I'm going to guess that throughout your adult life, cooking was some sort of a safe place, some sort of a way that you were feeding yourself beyond the food that you were making. So can you talk a little bit about what it was like to be brought up in the UK, what it was like to imagine where these mud pies were taking you, and how that thread kind of followed you through your life?
I love that you say that, Kathy, about play, because cooking for me as a kid was this magical thing that happened. I watched my grandmother make scones or scones, I think you maybe say in the US, but yeah, I watched her do that and it looked magical. She took these simple ingredients and just by putting them together with her hands, she made this most delicious thing. I couldn't believe how she did it. It felt like magic. And I was inspired by her and also inspired by my own parents to cook and use good ingredients. And I even remember, pretending to front my own cookery program in the kitchen as a child. It carried on throughout and it was so much fun for me. So definitely there was an element of play. So not just, playing with the tea set or things, but actually getting in and touching ingredients and making things. And I think you're right about it having been a part of my life, as a young adult as well. And even when I was working in the corporate environment, I created a separate business on the side, making cupcakes. So I was like in this stressful job, but added extra what someone else might think of as stress. But for me, it was like, oh, I can go home tonight and make 120 cupcakes. Ah.
I absolutely love that, because that was your way of expressing yourself, right? Because what is play? Play is engagement.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about what you were doing at that time professionally and what your days were like and what that felt like, that relief of coming home and doing something, getting your hands covered in flour.
Yeah. So I worked it was a team coordinator role. So it started out as a secretarial role in a massive global law firm with the offices in Edinburgh, actually. So I had moved to Scotland and I had done my degree there in languages, actually. So yeah, it's all a little bit mixed up. But yes, I ended up in this secretarial role because it was an easy thing for me to do. I had done temporary positions throughout my studies. And I just got this job as something I needed to work. So I thought, right, I'll get this temporary job. And I was there for 8 years, Kathy, in this position. And it was the easy way out. It was, I could go in and do this job every day. It was at my desk, supporting a team of lawyers. And then as I moved up in that role, I ended up in a management role and managed a team of secretaries as well. So although I loved it and I have this thing about connection and helping other people, so there was always that part of me that enjoyed my role, but I think I couldn't use my creativity and play in that role whatsoever. I mean, it just wasn't, you weren't allowed to move away from the corporate line. I felt very closed in and just I couldn't. I think that's why I created that business. It was like an outlet for the creativity and the fun part of me that needed to break out of the corporate sort of grind. So yeah, I think that's why I did it, and it worked really well. It was fantastic for me. I would get out of work and I would have these orders come in. I supplied some cafes in Edinburgh with my baking, and I just loved it. It was like a completely different thing. I was on my feet. I was using my hands. I was using my brain in a completely different way. I was creating something. The house smelled beautiful, and I had something to give to somebody, a real thing. And I think that idea of connection, so you talked about play and connection. I think when you do something that comes from that creative side, it creates a connection. It's, an art form in a way. I don't, it does create a connection, whether you're offering that to somebody else or whether you're creating with someone. So I'll quite often now encourage play with my children, and we'll make something together. And I'm trying to carry on that same inspiration that I got as a kid to my eldest at the moment. My youngest is too young really to do any baking just yet, but my eldest loves it, and we play and we create and make things together. And I hope he has the same memories that I do when he grows up.
I love that sense of expression. Right, so I'm picturing you in this big law firm, and I'm curious, you said you were there for 8 years. So how long did you have the cupcake business while you were working?
I think around 3 years, Kathy, I think. So yeah, it was towards the end of my time there. So yeah, it was at the end. So I sort of finished up with both things at the same time.
So you were there for 5 years without having this creative outlet. How did it come about? So you're going to work and doing your thing for a number of years without that. What gave you that idea? What was that spark?
I think I saw other people, I saw businesses in Edinburgh and all around the world. The cupcake thing had just exploded. I think it was a big thing in America before it came to the UK.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they were everywhere and they were just so cute and you could be so creative with them. I think, there's so many different flavors and decorations you can use. There's just so much that you can put into them. And also, I was making them all the time and bringing them in for my team members, and everybody was going, "Oh my God, these are gorgeous. You should do this. You should make these. You should start a business." And I realized that I was onto something, that it wasn't just that I loved to create these things. People were really enjoying them as well. So uh, it's quite easy to set up that type of side hustle business as well in the UK. You just it was a simple step really for me to just then get the business set up, create the website, and start selling them rather than just giving them away all the time.
I love this. It was like this perfect Venn diagram of here's this trend, here's this thing. Not only do I like to do, but it's really feeding me in some way. And then there's that overlay. You were really good at it, and people were asking you to do it and suggesting that this become a business. So I have a feeling this is going to be a theme that we continue to explore, but I just wanted just to pause and just say that's a lot of times that's how businesses come into being, right? There's this thing that's happening in the outer world. There's this thing that's happening in the inner world. And when those two overlay in the way that did, it's a really great business case that you've had there.
Thanks. And I think I was very lucky because I am quite open with these things, and I was telling people about it and bringing the cakes into work, and I didn't hide the fact that it was something that I really wanted to do, and I didn't hide the fact that I'd started this second business in my work. I told them about it, and there was no conflict of interest in theirs. There was no reason why I couldn't do it, so they embraced it as well with open arms, and as long as I was able to do my day job as well, they were really supportive of it. So I was very grateful at the time.
And somewhere along the line, though, here you are in Scotland, 8 years. You've got 2 careers that you're juggling, and somehow the idea to move to France comes into being. So tell me what that transition was like and how that even came into being.
I had wanted to change for a long time, Kathy. So, like I said, the law firm that I worked in, that job was never the dream job for me anyway. So I always knew something would have to change at some point, I think, deep down. And also because I had got into that managerial role, I could see lawyers all around me going from trainee to associate to partner, and I could see them moving forward in their career path. And once I got into this manager role, I couldn't really go any further. And I thought, well, something needs to change. So it's interesting, though. I was just talking about this with a friend the other day, that the catalyst for me was, I've got this really good job and I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to do all the things that you're meant to do. So I finally got the money together and I bought this house in Edinburgh. And 6 months later, I said, I'm packing it all in and I'm going. It took a big thing like that. I think I don't know what happened in me. I think I maybe got scared. I thought it took for me to buy that house and be in it on my own and think, right, this is it now. I've got this job and I've got this house and I'm following the path, but I'm not happy. So yeah. And then my boss at the time, she was going off on maternity leave and I worked really quite closely with her, Kathy. So I thought, I'm going to be quite at a loss for around 6 months when she's away. I wonder if my work will let me go as well for a few months. So I asked, and again, they were supportive of that, which I couldn't believe. And they let me take 6 months sabbatical.
Wow.
The time. So it was a win-win, really, because it saved them money for 6 months and I got to go away for 6 months. So I came to France and I gave it a try because, and the reason I came to France, I suppose I should say, is that my family were already here. So my parents, they had taken early retirement and were here already. My sister was living the French dream 2 miles down the road from my parents and was here, and she had started her family, and I really wanted to spend time with them. I had been away from them for years and I just thought, well, now's my chance. Maybe I'll go and see what it's like as well. I'll try it and see how things go. So that's how I used those 6 months. I came here to France and spent some time with my family, and it was amazing, Kathy. I got to see a whole different way of life. I got to spend time with my little nieces, and I also met my now husband. So there's also a little bit of a love story as well.
Wow. So, okay. That was that's a big deal. That first of all, a law firm like that would say, yes, you can go for 6 months, but you had just bought a house. So did you sell that before you went, or how did that work out?
So I thought I would rent it for a while. So friends of mine stayed there whilst I was away. So that actually all worked out quite well. It was a bit of a headache for me, but I got that organised and friends stayed. So I was quite lucky in that sense. My work, as I said, they were really supportive of it too. And when I finished the 6 months, I went back to work. I did the right thing. I didn't just up sticks and leave forever. I went back to my job. The landscape had completely changed in my mind at that point. I got back, it was January in Edinburgh, it was freezing cold, and I was back at my desk, and I just thought, no, this isn't right. So I waited it out for a few months, and then handed in my notice, and that was it. And the idea was sell the house and go. So yeah, I left my husband. Well, he wasn't my husband then, but he came to pick me up and we drove all the way from Edinburgh to the south of France in May 2013, so almost 10 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So 2 things I'm curious of. When you had those 6 months and you first went to France to be with your family, was there a recognition of this is a place that you felt like you needed to be? What was that like when you first got to France?
I think when I first got here, I wasn't sure whether it was right or not. I mean, it felt like a holiday for the first few weeks. I was like, oh, it just was fun. And I think as time went on, I did wonder about how I was going to make a life for myself here. Um, we live in a very remote area of Provence. So the village that I live in now and where my parents lived at the time, it has only got 300 people. The work...
No big law firms.
No big law firms, no. The work situation around here is very difficult. It's difficult to find employment. So I did wonder how I could make a life for myself. But I think the connection with my family, the spending time in nature here had a big impact on me as well, Kathy, just getting away from city life. And I do miss the city now. I look back and miss so much about city life. And my husband, he's from Marseille, so the second biggest city in France as well. So he does miss city life as well, but I don't think either of us could go back now. After living here, so I think the advantages outweighed the disadvantages for me. So yes, I was worried about work. Yes, I was worried about where am I going to live, everything, but I don't know how, but I knew I could make it be okay. I think because my family were here as well, I knew that, I wasn't going to be out on the street either. So,
yeah. And what I love about the story is that there's always a trade-off. Even in a life that feels, like a fairy tale, there are always trade-offs. And that makes, I think, your story very relatable, even though a lot of people probably can't even imagine what it's like to do what you've done. There's that relatable factor of recognizing that you need to be doing something different, and also knowing that you're going to be missing some elements of what you leave behind, right? Because there is some of that you've got to let go of the life that you had.
For sure. And so many things are different here. There's the cultural differences. There was obviously the language barrier at the start. So even though I had a degree in French and could speak French pretty well, I couldn't converse with people the way I can converse in English. The quick jokes, the little knowing phrases, just stuff that makes up good conversation. I couldn't do that. And I felt really isolated to begin with. So although I was surrounded by my family and my partner and all this beautiful nature and beautiful food, part of me felt isolated and a bit lonely in the beginning. So it definitely wasn't all dreamy, perfect life at all. Your problems and issues follow you no matter where you go. So I think, that was all still inside me. But I think I just knew I needed to get away from a desk job and have a change, I think. Yeah. So, I went for it.
How do you get over that link? Because it's really more cultural, right? They're cultural references. These are references of people that know each other since they probably went to school together and things like that. And I can see that being isolating. So how do you work through that?
I found that very hard for the first, I want to say 2 or 3 years, Kathy. It did take as long as that. So I tried very much to form friendships here with people, but it was very fleeting and quite difficult to do in the beginning. And it wasn't until I got pregnant with my first child that changed for me. I think I felt more integrated in society here because of him. So being pregnant here, being part of the system, getting into, having to arrange hospital appointments and getting to know the medical staff, all the different things that you have to do here when you fall pregnant. It made me feel more integrated. And then when I gave birth to him, I had to take him to baby weighing sessions once a week. I went to baby massage, so I met other mums. All these different things that are part and parcel of that journey really helped cement my feeling of being a part of life here. And I think before that, I don't know whether I was also slightly pushing away the culture here. So I don't know if it was just the people around me in France or whether it was also me that was denying being part of culture here. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but I think that part of me that missed home and missed city life was I always had my foot in both places. So I would miss home and want to go home and want to be back with the people I knew and loved. So I sort of slightly resented life here sometimes, which seems crazy, but I find it very difficult for the first couple of years. So and only now really, yeah, after having my two kids here, I feel completely French, and I feel so integrated in the community, and everybody knows me and knows my children, and they go to the local school, and I'm on different little associations and boards and things, so I'm completely immersed in the life here now. So it's fantastic, but it's taken me time to do that.
Yeah. And, and I think that's very relatable too. I think the way you describe it, what really integrated you was you were sharing new experiences with people, right? So the things that maybe they would have talked about previously, this was all a new experience for all of you. And that's what you're bonding over, right?
That's so true.
So I think that that's really, I know you didn't do it. You probably didn't do it consciously, but I think that's really great advice for somebody who is not quite sure of that next step. It's like, it's less about the old self and more about the new elements that can create bonds going forward. So I think that's a really, really important lesson. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Kathy. And I love that so much. I think that is so true. And I don't know if I would have put it in those words before, but that is exactly what it felt like. So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So please tell us about what you're doing today. You're on a whole new entrepreneurial journey. So tell us about what you're doing and how it came about.
So now I am director of My Food in France Limited. So this is a baby project. It's it's in the early days, and it came about when I was pregnant with my second child, Finn, who's now 1. And whenever I first got to France, it took me a couple of years to find my groove in terms of work. And I think my journey in that law firm really helped me because I'd done a sort of PA secretarial role there. I was able to use those skills to create an online business here. So I created a VA business and OBM business, online business manager company, and worked with executive coaches from the UK and helped them with their admin and their marketing and managing their business. And I absolutely loved it and still love it. I still have some clients with that business. And it's what I'm so good at it. And I just love that work. It's fantastic. And I love my clients. And it became such a big part of my life that I ended up feeling a little bit back like I was in a corporate world again, Kathy. So a lot of time at a desk, a lot of time in front of the computer, a lot of time supporting my clients who I love dearly, and I'm friends with them and they are amazing people. But the work that I'm doing felt very like being back in corporate again. I thought, this is not what I came here for. But I think whilst I was on the train and doing the work, and because it's your own business, you have a massive responsibility to these people. It's not like walking into work and then out again at the end of the day. You have them in your mind all the time. And then I took time off to have my second little boy, and I had some space, some headspace. And it is amazing what that can do. I wanted to create something new. So this creative part of me was bursting out, just needing to be heard, I think. And I knew it was something to do with food. As I said at the start, that has always been part of my mind and my thoughts. It's always been in there. And I never really knew how I could make that work here. I wasn't sure if it was something that would be possible for me here in France because of the restrictions and the amount of, you need to make a massive investment to create a food business here. And I just didn't know if I could do that. So this space and time that I had when I was on my maternity leave allowed me to explore how I could create a foodie business online. And my food in France was born. So yeah, my son was born, and then my food in France was born as well, not long after. And yeah, it was all thanks to a moment really where three of my friends and I got together online. We all went to school together, the four of us, so we've known each other a very long time. And we were all turning 40 this time last year. So because COVID was still happening and, travel restrictions were still in place, we decided to do an online cookery class. So we did this class with this amazing woman, this Turkish woman who taught us this most beautiful dish. And then we came off the Zoom call. We all had created this gorgeous meal together. And we started a new Zoom call together and ate our food together, ate this amazing meal we had created. And we spent an evening together with as much connection and creativity and laughter as we would have if we'd been together in the same room. It was so amazing, Kathy. And there was this light bulb moment in me of, wow, I could do this. This all just happened online. I could create this connection and creativity and this, moment for other people. I could show my skills and show where I live and talk about France and talk about the food I eat and the produce, and it's possible. So yeah, so it was that light bulb moment and that amazing time spent with my three best girlfriends that that helped me. That sowed the seed really for this new venture.
I absolutely love that story. And I don't think it's unusual. I'm sitting here shaking my head saying I can completely relate how we can recreate our corporate life. And even though it's different and it's better and it's ours, it has that energy around it. And so I think it's fascinating that it's very similar to, working at the law firm, having this cupcake business. Here you created your own firm and you still wanted to do this. You had this dream of doing this food business. And once again, it was a trend. In this case, it was the pandemic that opened the eyes of folks that you can connect online. Like if it wasn't for that, you wouldn't have a business right now. And then you had this amazing experience. And so once again, you took the 6 months like you did when your manager, got pregnant. You took your own 6 months because you got pregnant or however long that was. And, history repeated in a way, but it's almost like I see this as a spiral that spirals up, right? You're getting closer and closer to what that little girl who was making mud pies would enjoy. Right?
Oh, Kathy, you're going to make me cry. Don't say it.
It's so beautiful. It's such a lovely, lovely story.
I hadn't realized how it's so similar to the first part of my story. Yeah. Wow. Thank you.
You're going deeper. Wow. I can't wait to talk to you in a couple of years. Who knows what's going to happen?
You can come on my podcast in a couple of years.
I'd be happy to. Wow. You have said that in your My Food in France business that your mission is of creating love and connectedness through food. And I'm curious, I can see how you can do that for your clients. And we're going to talk about your offerings in a little bit. But I'm curious how your day-to-day has been impacted now that you do get to do this for a living. So how has your life changed as a result of all the changes that you've gone through professionally?
I think I am able to decide what I do on a day-to-day basis now because I have my own businesses. I still have my original business going at the moment, thankfully. I'm so grateful for that. And I hope that I will be able to eventually wind that down and just focus on the food side of things. That is the dream. So I think in terms of connectedness, for me, I want to feel that connectedness to my family, to my friends, to the people that I meet online and to the wider world. And I do think that is possible, Kathy. So I create a connectedness in my family by us sitting around the table, eating together or cooking together, as I talked about earlier with my son. It's so important to me. I have a connection with my sister and that we both love to cook and talk about food together. My parents-in-law are obviously, they're French, so I learn so much from them. And I love being around them and seeing the classic French dishes that they'll make. But I also think that the sharing of recipes and creating something together online actually creates such a connection with people as well. And I notice this in the classes that I do online. I see the people have that similar moment that I had in that class last year. So we get together, we laugh, we have fun, we're connecting over food, over ingredients, over creating. And I think it's so important. So one of the things that I want to do going forward is to perhaps bring that creation into the corporate world. I'm not sure how possible that will be, but to try and create some cookery classes for teams and bring them together online so that we can create together and have a little bit of an injection of creativity and fun into that world. And I think that will be much more possible now that a lot of people are working online and from home. And yeah, that's the idea.
Wonderful. So tell us about My Food in France. Tell us what people can expect if they come to your website. What is it that you offer?
So the main thing that I offer with My Food in France is a membership space. So my members pay me once a month to be part of this community, and I offer a cookery class once a month as part of the membership, where we get together online and all cook an amazing dish or meal. I also offer 2 cookery demonstrations per month. So I'll get online and do a little live into the group, and that is all recorded content that goes in to a massive vault full of recipes and online cookery content and videos and so much more. I'm hoping to add lots of fun stuff to that, actually. So lots of little things where you can work your way through the recipes and unlock little surprises along the way as you work your way through the recipes on there. And then we just have this beautiful space, I think, is what I love about it. So we talk a lot about food in there, about what's seasonal, about what ingredients that we want to cook with this month. I've done some interviews with local producers here and winemakers, and those go into the Facebook group and into the vault as well. So there's lots and lots of content about My Food in France. So it's not just French food. That's also something I want to explain, because as much as I love the food here, they're very traditional in their approach. So it's quite a lot of traditional French food, and I love food from all over. So there's traditional Irish recipes from all over the world, Thai, Chinese, Mexican, anything. So there's lots of content in there. So there's the membership space. I also do individual classes for anybody who wants to come and just learn a particular dish, or I call them my secret weapon classes, actually, Kathy, because it's this idea that if you have a date night coming up or you have friends coming around and you really want to impress them, we'll get together and have a class, and you can either have the meal or the dish ready for when everybody arrives, or we can cook together beforehand and practice the dish, and then you can recreate it when the event comes around. So
Smart.
yeah, so that's my secret weapon.
I love that.
And I've also got a couple of new offerings that are coming up. So I'm going to do a session. I'm going to offer a couple per month, and it's about cooking smarter. So what I want to try and teach people is what strategies and tips I can pass on that I use for meal planning and low food waste, reducing food waste completely if possible, and making your shopping list go further, because I'm seeing a lot of people struggling with all those things at the moment. So the idea is we'll get onto Zoom, we'll spend 1 hour together. You can keep the recording afterwards and have that, and it will just be packed full of strategies and tips that you can use for all those things that you can use for life. That is something I feel really strongly about at the moment, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. So, yeah.
I think that's wonderful. And so for your main monthly offering, you provide the recipe in advance with a shopping list?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then everybody prepares together with their camera on?
Yeah, I mean, you could come with your camera on. If it's not, because we're such a small group at the minute, that's why it's so important for me to get the message out, because I also think if you join now, it's the perfect time. We're such a small group. Everybody has some input into the content at the moment as well. So I'll be quite open about saying, right, what do you want to make this month? What would you like to cook together? So everybody who's in there has input. We'll get together on the cook along. They'll have had the shopping list, a week in advance, and we will cook the dish or the meal together. So some people just come and watch because they haven't had time to get the ingredients together. Some people watch on catch up. All the cookery lessons go into the vault as well. So they're all in there. So even if someone were to join now, they would have access to all that previous content. So it's all in there.
Oh, that's great. And I love that cook along. So tell our listeners how they can get in touch with you.
So the best place to find me at the moment is on LinkedIn at Judith Keys. You can find me on there, Keys, like a bunch of keys. Or you can find me on Instagram at myfoodinfance.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I feel inspired. I just feel like I want to cook something right now. So you're doing wonderful, wonderful work. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know there are many ways you can spend your time. Thank you for choosing to spend it with me. Until our paths cross again, be kind to yourself and show your warrior spirit some love. If you know anyone who could benefit from today's episode, please pass it on. And many thanks for supporting the show by subscribing and leaving a review. It means a lot, and it helps others find their way to our circle. If you'd like to access the show notes, have a question you'd like addressed on a future episode, or would like a transcript of this episode, visit www.athenawellness.com/podcast. Until next time, be well.